The Marine Corps requires leaders of all ranks to have a deep understanding of war and the employment of force. MCDP1 reminds Marines that the military profession is a thinking profession. Every Marine is expected to be a student of the art and science of war. It goes on to say that every Marine has an individual responsibility to study the profession of arms. Self-directed study in the art and science of war is at least equal in importance to maintaining physical condition and should receive at least equal time. The Marine Corps Association understands the critical importance of ensuring that Marines are as mentally ready for combat as they are physically ready. That is why we offer an entire page dedicated to wargaming on our website. We have recommendations for both tabletop board games as well as computer games. And for Marine Corps Association members, there is a discount code for war game design studios that you can find on the website. War games are a great way to immerse yourself in history and to put yourself in the shoes of the great leaders of history. Go beyond guided instruction and experience the thrill of wargaming. Check us out at mca-marines.org/decision-making-exercises/wargaming-2. That's mca-marines.org/decision-making-exercises/wargaming-2. Take your training to the next level. Hey, Scuttlebutt listeners. Welcome to episode 205. This week, we continue with our audio-only Modern Day Marine 2025 series. As with the previous MDMs, we were recording from the showroom floor, but as some of you know, this year we recorded some on video for our YouTube channel and others we recorded as audio-only podcasts. For the next few weeks, we will be releasing these audio-only conversations that range from veteran support organizations to future ops and wargaming to Toys for Tots. We're really looking forward to sharing these conversations with you. This week's episode features the Marine Corps Warfighting Lab's Sergeant Major Christopher Singley. Sergeant Major Singley joins us after having presented at the Warfighting Pavilion on day 2 of Modern Day Marine, speaking on the 30 years of innovation at the Warfighting Lab. Sergeant Major talks to us more about that, and he gives us some history on the Warfighting Lab and the genesis of its mission, his thoughts on the value of experimentation, and McWill's role in the projection and implementation of force design. This is episode 205. Hey, Scuttlebutt listeners, thank you for joining us and your continued support. I'm Vic, and I'm really honored to be sitting with Sergeant Major Chris Singley from Marine Corps Warfighting Lab. Sergeant Major, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me this morning.
Yeah, this is great. So we are on the floor at Modern Day Marine 2025, and Brigadier General Duran just gave a speech earlier, or not a speech, but gave a presentation earlier, and you presented at the, was it the Marine Zone, or was it?
Warfighting Pavilion.
Warfighting Pavilion as well. And one of the things that you guys are here, not only as sort of the Marine Corps' sort of vision for how we are going to fight, how the Marine Corps is going to be employed, but is to also present your own 30 years of innovation, as we're on the now 30th anniversary of the Marine Corps Warfighting Lab.
Yeah, the Warfighting Lab was actually started by General Krulak 30 years ago, originally as the Commandant's Warfighting Lab.
Okay.
At one point in time, it was an SP MAGTF.
Okay, nice.
And it's grown to where it is now, which is essentially under General Berger, became the primary executor, implementer of force design as we did experimentation to define how we would change some of our formations for force design 2030 and now force design moving forward in perpetuity.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I got to imagine, as we were talking about, when force design was first coming in, obviously there was a ton of pushback. A lot of folks just really didn't necessarily, even if they could see the sort of vision of it, where it was so revolutionary that you would expect there would be some criticisms for sure. You guys had a major role to play in some of the formation of force design, because of what you guys do in that idea of being able to envision and project out sort of how the Marine Corps will look, right? Is my summing that up
that's
right?
right. And in the beginning for the lab, I'd say it was very tactical, squad focused. As a young Marine, I started off as an 0311. I was doing stuff with the Warfighting Lab. I remember in 2000, 2002 time frame, small robotics, non-lethal weapon systems, things like that. The lab was heavily involved during the counter IED to develop equipment for IED defeat, detect, and also different methods, TTPs.
Was JIADO part of Marine Corps? Was that a separate agency?
That is separate.
Okay.
But McWill did work with JIADO, as we worked through for the Joint Force on the IED threat. Obviously for the Marine Corps at the time, and to speak to your point about force design, we own battle space in Anbar, Helmland, and I don't think that's what we'll see in the future. We'll be part of the larger Joint Force, and that was part of the reason behind force design is we're part of a larger Joint Force. How do we fight as a portion of that, and how do we enable kill webs, kill chains for the Joint Force, and it's not just our battle space. We've got others involved, whether it's other weapon systems, other logistics support, whatever it may be. How do we, work with them, communicate with them, and make their systems work with ours?
Yeah, and you guys have so many sort of subdivisions within the Warfighting Labs umbrella as well. And the one that I'm familiar with is Futures Division. When I was working at SgtMaj as a requirements development officer, we were working because we were looking at what's next after AAV. And so it was really incumbent a lot on us working with the Warfighting Lab so that we weren't developing requirements that were either antiquated or just so outside the box that they weren't achievable. And so it was a lot of what is a MEU going to look like when it tries to land? What is a BLT? How is it going to seize objectives inland? How does obviously not getting into high side O-plan stuff, but how does a MEF look if it has to conduct landing? And so, could you talk a little bit more about sort of how the Warfighting Lab is structured and how over the past 30 years, how it's sort of evolved into what it is today?
Sure, and first I'll start with the CG. He is the CG Marine Corps Warfighting Lab. He's also the Vice Chief of Naval Research. He's the Commandant's Executive Agent for Science and Technology. And while we have a Futures Division, underneath McWill is also his hats, I'll say, the fourth hat is Futures Directorate. So our Futures Division is looking at, we've been hyper-focused in the Marine Corps on 2030, 2027 time frame for a few years now. But what's next? What's the 10-year problem? And, one of the things we always get right is we never get it right. We're predicting the future.
100%
if we can predict the future, then there'd be no problems. But if we can narrow down the uncertainty volume, if we can use our Futures Division to look at future technology, future threat, the future operating environment, and not 100% define it, but at least get some ideas of what it may look like. And then as we look at future force design, we look at what our formations should look like, we have something to model that off of. Our G7 does physics-based modeling and simulation to actually understand our weapons, threat weapons, what they're capable of, and how do those work against each other or in concert with each other for our own stuff. And then we have our Wargaming Division. Wargaming, we have a Title X responsibility to do wargaming for the Marine Corps, which is a little different than what Marine Corps University and others do.
Right.
You mentioned the O plans. We'll look at scenarios and actually wargame those out. We do several a year, but we'll bring in, we do it for units across the Marine Corps. Usually it's division or MEF or MLG level, larger units, where we look at what they have for their forces available and wargame for them, and that's how we can identify gaps in our capabilities and potentially lead to development of new. Because if we find a gap with wargaming, we have our Science and Technology Division. They can then go to industry or go to some of our partners like Office of Naval Research and find things that either address a gap or maybe there's not a need or requirement yet, and we can start to define a requirement for that. And then from Science and Technology, we have our Experiment Division. That's where we do live force experiment. The big one that's wrapping up now for the Marine Corps is Infantry Battalion Experimentation on 3-4.
Right.
So the things that maybe science and technology, S&T, I'll call them, S&T finds, do some reps with, get a good understanding, but then put it in the hands of Marines. At the end of the day, Marines will do a great job of helping us ruggedize stuff because they'll find new ways to break it, which is what we want because we need it to be resilient. But they'll also do things that some of the PhDs didn't think could be done with some of those systems and show us new ways to employ them and also give industry an idea of like, hey, when the Marines use it, they're actually using it more for X while we thought Y was going to be the primary use case.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had the Commandant's Planning Guy that's mentioned a young sergeant by name who is doing stuff with software code on some of our systems to turn things on from 1,000 miles away that the PhDs didn't think could be done. So, when we get out to experiments, that's where we really have, we're a officer, contractor, and civilian GS heavy workforce at the lab. So when we do the experiments through the normal exercises a Maverick division will do, we go and bring equipment out for experimentation there. We're able to get, really the tactical level feedback on how things actually work. And what the Marines want to make it better, or what they want to, what thing on it's too heavy that you don't really need that we can take off as well.
I think that's such I think it's a nuanced approach, and I don't want to speak for the other services, but this idea that we as a service, and you particularly as an organization, isn't so enamored. Like, we don't enjoy the smell of our own farts. You want to see sort of how these, we need the theory, absolutely. But how is it going to be applied, and how are the Marines going to actually use this stuff, rather than us just directing to them, like, here's this thing, do this stuff. And I mean, am I? No,
and I would say one of the challenges with any Marine organization is we always want to succeed. The CG and I have talked, and he said it in the presentation this morning. We probably need to fail at MCWL pretty often, because that means we're actually testing the stuff.
Okay.
And if we find 10 systems we want to test and all 10 become a program of record, then we weren't trying hard enough.
Right.
And we need to fail and fail fast and always fail forward.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, everything is not going to work as advertised the first time, every time. And if it only works because there's a McWill PhD standing over your shoulder telling you how to do it, then that's probably a failure as well.
Right.
So not to promote failure, but we need to fail at least 50-50.
I think there's a lot of wisdom in that humility, because, and I don't know, maybe just because I failed a lot in my life, but I feel like I've learned more through my failures oftentimes, because I love the affirmation of success, right? Like, of course I was succeeding, I'm awesome. But it's the failures that are like, oh shit, I got to reevaluate.
And the Marines probably aren't too excited when they're experimenting something that breaks. That they may question they will question the validity then, but it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because it's informing, an industry partner of something they thought was, grunt proof.
Yeah.
Well, it can be, but it's not there yet.
Yeah, not yet. Yeah, not yet. And so. One of your success stories though is Sea Dragon, right? Was that you could talk a little bit about? So
Sea Dragon was one of the early experiments that was done in the 90s when the lab started. But then when now Major General Wortman, the CG 3rd Marine Division, when he was the CG of the Warfighting Lab, he did Sea Dragon, I believe 2017.
Yeah.
Did another iteration of it. It's just a large-scale experimentation exercise. We publish each year a service-level experimentation campaign plan where we kind of define the goals we have for experimentation. And Sea Dragon in 2017 and in 95, 96, actually, I think, were part of that. We always try to put our experiment goals into exercises the MEF is doing. Now, my most recent home was in 3rd Mardev at 4th Marine Regiment, Part 3 MEF. And Resolute Dragon is an example.
Okay.
Resolute Dragon is a large exercise partnered with our allies in the JGSDF. So we try to put stuff out there as well to experiment with. The other challenge we have is we do a lot of things with partners that we use what we call like a swivel chair style of communication. Like I'll get some piece of information that based off of the methods or sources or classification we can't right away share. Mm-hmm. So we take out what we can, and you turn the swivel chair around and tell the partner, here's this. Well, I want a machine to do that, because if I can do it at machine speed, then I'm enabling things to move faster. If that's a kill chain, kill web moving faster, if it's a logistic resupply somewhere, if it's a medevac somewhere, if I need to use a partner to support that, machine speed can move faster than humans. The old yellow canary writing the note down and passing along. We can do better and faster than that.
Right, faster, Marine. Now run. So you guys, talking about sort of the evolution of MCWL, one of the major steps that you guys have taken as far as innovation is having a command sergeant, having a sergeant major on staff, right? Like, what did you say? You're the first one in 15 years. Is that correct?
Yeah, they. I don't know. I may get some eyebrows at a sergeant major being innovation, but I like it. No, so I believe it was under General Berger. He directed that he wanted every commanding general to have a sergeant major as his or her command senior enlisted major. So that was my billet was added. I checked in April of 24. And the first one, actually, the last one still works as a contractor at the lab. So,
okay, nice.
So I have somebody to go to at least to ask questions. But when he was there, he told me it was a MAGTAF with several hundred Marines, so completely different than what it is now.
Yeah.
But and I think one of the reasons why my billet exists now is at the end of the day, while we do a lot of things at MCWL that may be higher classification levels, there's also a lot of things that we can share. And there's also it's not that hard for a unit to have a briefing space that's at least secret level. So I've had a goal of trying to inform, whether it's staff NCOs and first sergeants down to NCO and Lance Corporal level. I mean, I tell the units we visit for different experimentation things, if you have a corporal's course and you want them to know about the current things we're doing for force design and how we envision the fight and the equipment we're going to, at least MCWL does prototypes, we're not fielding large scale numbers, but what are the prototypes, and if you see it for the first time in an exercise, if I can give you some, inch deep insight on what that is, that's been a primary goal of mine since I arrived at the lab.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't want to reinforce stigma, being a retired officer myself, but I got to imagine that when these concepts and things, and you're approaching the Marines about how here's this innovation, here's this new thing, this is how we envision it being employed. I mean, let's be honest, the Marines are used to seeing officers talk about this stuff, and they're used to glazing over when this shit happens. And so to have, a sergeant major, a senior enlisted advisor who, not only can I talk to you about this new thing, but I can talk to you about how it was applied because I was there with you at the time. I think it adds a sense of authenticity, and it's more relatable. I don't know. Am I overplaying that?
No, I agree with you. I mean, one of the first times I did our main brief is the How We Fight brief. It was actually to 2 general officers. And I think it was for them. I've actually spoke to both of them here. They were like, "Oh, the sergeant major's briefing me." Okay. But that was one of the things I really took to heart. I had to learn that brief and also learn the crazy questions that come from it early on, because if I'm going to have an office at the lab, then I got to have some value to that office.
Yeah.
And if part of that value is the CG can be in 2 places at once because I can do something instead of him occasionally, I'm going to do that. But I also admit that one of the main audiences being at Quantico, we have Cornerstone, the commander's course for commander and senior enlisted 0506 level, and the first sergeant's course come through there. I take advantage of the opportunity to go brief those classes. And sometimes, like with the first sergeants, they kind of question, why am I getting this? Which I understand. As a brand new first sergeant, I was wondering about some of that too. But at the end of the day, I'm trying to communicate what are we putting out there that is going to help you be more lethal and also help your Marines be more survivable. Yeah. If that's how we're going to do medevacs in a contested logistics area, if that's how we could potentially hide our electronic and visual signature, if that's just a weapon system that gives us more standoff range, at the end of the day, while the company first sergeant, battalion sergeant major is not fighting the fight, their Marines are, and they need to understand what's there to help the survivability and lethality of their Marines.
Yeah, and I mean, also too, I think, and not to say that first sergeants, or at even the staff academy, but it's this idea that you were one of the people, maybe in a younger era of your life or an earlier part of your career, but you were one of the people who was using this stuff going, why do I have this thing? It doesn't fucking work. And so now here you are, like, guys, this works, or we need to find out if this works, like for real, find out if this works.
But, or maybe like I don't think it works yet.
Yeah,
but it's starting
it's
to
on
work,
its
and
way.
I really need you to stress test it, because if it's just the people at the lab, we'll get a decent idea. But at the end of the day, until they go back to the fleet, they're not the user.
Yeah.
You and your Marines are. Understand it. I don't need. You know, we briefed the first Mossy Leaders Conference recently, and the 3 MEF Sergeant Kitashima spoke, and one of the, I think, commanders in there asked her kind of what she expected the Sergeant Major to understand on some of the O-plan stuff. Mm-hmm. And her answer was, I don't need the Sergeant Major to be deep on a plan, but I needed to understand how it affects the people there, and how that, if we talk .MLPF, things like that, how that fits into that picture. And then off the side afterwards, she told me, she said, except you got to understand all of it, because you're the one who's supposed to be understanding this for us. And so I took that to heart. Like I don't expect, an operator to be a first sergeant or sergeant major, even a company gunny somewhere.
Yeah.
But I do expect that if there's something that's a prototype and we haven't done everything to understand the implications of what you need for storage space and the training to man it, stuff like that, have the the humility to say, hey, maybe when they ask me for 5 Marines for this, and I know there's critical needs elsewhere, maybe I need to prioritize this, because if I have a basic understanding of how this makes us more survivable or more lethal, then I need to make sure that my Marines know it going into a future fight.
Yeah. I think that's so good. I think that I really do feel like that is innovative. In sort of even in the comm-strat sort of perspective on that. So you being the first Sergeant Major of MCWL in a while, what is sort of your path? Like how did you get in this position?
Sure. So
you mentioned you're infantryman by trade.
Infantry by background.
Yeah.
And I always like to say I've had peers or others who call themselves, whatever, a grunt, first sergeant, grunt sergeant major, like, no, I lap moved when I picked up first sergeant. I became the 89, 99. I'm not.
That's right.
I may have once been an infantryman, but not anymore. So a couple of things that I think helped me understand things at the lab better when I stepped in. There really was a couple of sergeant major billets leading up to it. I was an I&I sergeant major at COB 453 in Denver. Nice. And at the time, we had a detachment in San Jose that was part of, before Marine Innovation Unit was created, we had some innovation cells.
Okay.
In San Jose, proximity to Silicon Valley.
Sure.
I had some extremely intelligent Lance Corporals out there who were doing some great work for us. And that was kind of the precursor for MIU. But then going to I was the 4th Marine Regiment Sergeant Major from 22 to 24. And while I was out there, every IBX rotated through on UDP. And obviously in the Pacific, with the focus on the Pacific, I was able to see what we were fielding to IBX, what was working well for them, what was what in the formation was challenging. One of the early IBXs, 1st Battalion, 2nd Marines, they didn't have many cooks in the formation. But when they came forward to Okinawa, and you have to man the chow hall plus go to the field to feed your Marines, not many cooks became a problem. And but able to see some of that experimentation firsthand, see how it worked, also see how it worked with allies and partners. I spent a month and a half in the northern Philippines with 1-2 with the company they had there, and seeing them with the Philippine Marines and what was successful, what wasn't. It gave me a pretty good understanding. I thought, definitely learned a lot since I got there, of what the infantry battalion experimentation was doing, and at least from the GCE perspective, where force design was in current time, with admittedly for me a good learning curve on the ACE, especially, and the LCE as well.
Sure. Oh man, the logistics support of expeditionary advanced basing is such a fascinating topic. So I can only imagine, especially for you at the warfighting lab, like this talk of using sort of civilian models and how to do. But that's probably not the sole place of our podcast.
Just for the logistics thing, quick, two of the great wins that are out in. I think they're going to be great wins. They're still doing some experimentation, but 2 of the things we have forward right now is our stern landing vessel, which trying to find solutions for littoral mobility. One of those was the oil rigs in the Gulf use a vessel that has a 150-foot ramp on it and can carry a lot of weight when it takes oil sludge, stuff like that out. Well, we leased one. It's in the Pacific now, and that thing can plane itself. It's got 4 pylons that come down from it with the 150-foot ramp. and we can do
Oh, wow.
a little bit of littoral movement. Not large scale, but we
Yeah.
can move some things around. And right now, it gives 3MEF another asset to move stuff just for exercises.
Cool.
And the other one is, I believe it was when it was either General Workman or General Ellison were the CG of the lab. The lab went down to Southcom and essentially asked, "What's your most difficult problem when it comes to detections for narco trafficking?" And that eventually led to what we now have, where we call it the autonomous low-profile vessel. It's better known as the narco sub. But a 65-foot long vessel it's very difficult for us to detect, even when we know where it is. But it gives us a pretty good capacity to move stuff, say between islands, intra-island, in the Pacific or other maritime areas. So we have some resupply option between our islands.
That's so cool. Yeah, I mean, I love it. Like, let's get down below. Can't see it.
And we may have new ideas, but more often than not, someone's already maybe had the idea and already done something with it. And again, not to, I don't want to give too much credit to like the cartels, but that's something our own Homeland Security and Southcom has had to work hard to figure out how to track that.
That's a constant, building a better mousetrap sort of dynamic, right?
Yeah.
Like you do this, I'll do this, you do this, yeah. And they've been doing that for generations. So, yeah, a lot of learning and innovation going on there.
I guess staying out of prison is a good motivator. So
sure, 100%. 100%. Or, continuing to make, millions of dollars on illegal trafficking. So how do you envision sort of what's the next 30 years like for the Warfighting Lab? I find it interesting, and we had August Cole on yesterday talking about sort of how the rapid proliferation of technology right now is making things making the hypothetical very real very quickly. I got to imagine that when Marine Corps, the Warfighting Lab was sort of beginning, there was probably some eye rolling, probably some audible back molar sucking sounds. But now, all you have to do is turn on the news and you can see this innovation occurring almost in real time. So how do you envision the Warfighting Lab sort of evolving and helping us as the Marine Corps understand the future landscape employment?
Sure, I doubt I'll get the 30-year answer right.
Okay.
But if I
100% accurate and being inaccurate, right?
But if I look at 5 to 10 years, I think we have a lot of room for growth in unmanned teaming. And what I would specifically say is, if I can allow an unmanned system, a robot, whether that's a surface vessel, a ground, we've got the robot dog at our booth here, one of the robot dogs here. If it's a UAS system, how can I allow the robotics to do the more dangerous work? I still believe that the last 100 yards is still the infantry Marines battle space, and they're going to have to close that. But if I can eliminate or reduce as much of the threat as possible with robotics before that last 100 yards, then I'm enabling more survivability for that Marine. If that's through autonomy, if that's through growing our own understanding of the human controlling the robotics, if we can get to where humans can control more than one without too much cognitive overload, at the end of the day, it's increasing survivability, and the manned-unmanned teaming, I think, is a big part of that. And then I said a little bit there, but how we incorporate more autonomy.
Yeah.
There are, I grew up when Terminator was a movie coming out, so there's my generation still probably scared of Skynet a little bit.
I still refer to my Roomba as being part of Skynet.
Yeah. There are lots of things that we can use autonomy. And I joke with people, at the end of the day, in some ways, an M240 is a human-on-the-loop piece of autonomous gear.
Right.
It's just like when Google Maps tells me to turn right ahead, I do it. I'm on the loop there, and whatever. Or if the car steers me back because I'm not paying attention, I'm getting out of my lane a little bit. That's autonomy working for us. We don't have to be scared by that. But there's definitely growth there. Is that going to be managing our data for us better? Is it going to be ingesting data for us and giving us just the relevant stuff? Mm-hmm. Is it back to the swivel chair method where it's stripping out all the less important stuff? Just give me the key details that I want a human to make the decision, but I don't necessarily want the human to have to go through a terabyte of data to get to that decision.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, we definitely want to leverage that speed, for sure. Well, this has been really fascinating. I've had some, obviously interacted with, like I mentioned earlier, with Warfighting Lab through requirements development, but also you guys put out some vignettes. I think it was 2016 timeframe, 2015, 2016 timeframe. Futures Division was working on, and I thought it was a really great idea that, like, hey, rather than just like doing death by PowerPoint, why don't we create these fictional vignettes that we could then just make, like, really lean into narrative and make the show the application rather than just telling the application. And so I thought that was a really great idea. And so I love what you guys are doing, and especially everything you guys are doing with wargaming and experimentation. It's been really great. So Major, thank you so much for coming and spending some time with us today. And I really look forward to seeing what the Warfighting Lab has to offer for the Marine Corps here in the future.
Okay, thank you. Can I do one closing?
Please, yeah, please.
Shameless
this is your time.
plug.
Yeah, no shame, no shame.
The only thing I'll add in is one of the great bids for success for McWill is our fellowship program.
Oh, okay.
Where we bring Marines in from the fleet. You know, for any command listening, we pay their TAD, we pay the cost, no concern there. But we bring Marines in for 6 months, so we get 10 to 15 Marines from the fleet to get their feedback and have them working with us. But then more importantly, they take that back to their unit as well to help out. So just the one thing as we look into the future, bringing those young NCOs and company-grade officers in, I think pays huge dividends for the lab.
Is that a MAR admin, or how would our listeners find that?
We do. We have a fellowship going on now. We release a MAR admin each year.
Okay.
Usually around November, December it comes out.
Okay.
But yes, that's how we release that each year.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely encourage our listeners, if you're active duty, please pay attention for that. And Sergeant Major, thank you again for taking the time to spend with us today.
No, thanks for having me. Thank you.
Scuttlebutt is a production of the Marine Corps Association. You have heard the voices or contributions from Major Vic Rubel, USMC retired, Nancy Litchman, William Truding, and our guest. Ty Frazier is the editor, sound engineer, and technical producer. The Marine Corps Association is not an agency of the U.S. government. The opinions expressed in this episode are the personal views of the participants and do not reflect the official position of the United States Marine Corps, the Department of Defense, or the Marine Corps Association.